Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, where today we're uncovering the most valuable wheat pennies and Kennedy half dollars that could completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your collection or even in your change jar. Some of these coins have sold for shocking prices, soaring well into the hundreds of thousands and a few even reaching beyond the $500,000 mark. Imagine holding on to a coin that looks ordinary to most people, but to the right collector, it's a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. These aren't just old pieces of metal, they're hidden jackpots, and today we're revealing the top 20 that every collector, investor, and history lover needs to know about. If you love uncovering coin secrets and rare finds, make sure to subscribe here because you won't want to miss what's coming next. First up, we have the 1965 Kennedy half dollar you're looking at right now. At first glance, this coin looks like any other piece of pocket change that has seen decades of circulation. The surface is dulled down. There are patches of wear on Kennedy's cheek and jawline, and the luster is mostly gone. You can even spot small marks and blemishes that show it's been passed from hand to hand for years. On the reverse, the eagle design is still clear, but the details in the feathers and shield are worn smooth. To most people, this coin is just 50 cents, something to toss in a jar or hand over at a store without thinking twice. But what if I told you that even in this condition, coins like this can turn into shocking treasures? The 1965 Kennedy half dollar holds a special place in U.S. history. Just 2 years after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, the nation was still honoring his legacy with this coin. What makes 1965 different, though, is that it marked the end of the 90% silver coins. Instead, this half dollar was struck in a 40% silver-clad composition, a transition that makes it unique. Millions were minted, but only a fraction today have the right combination of condition, errors, and rarity that collectors chase after. And it's those rare examples that send values through the roof. One of the most exciting things about this coin is the possibility of finding special mint errors. Some 1965 halves are known to be struck on planchets from other denominations like quarters or even leftover 90% silver planchets. Imagine holding a coin like that, the wrong metal, the wrong weight, something that slipped through the cracks at the mint. These errors are so scarce that when they show up at auction, collectors battle fiercely for them. A normal worn example might fetch just a couple of dollars over face value because of the silver content, but a dramatic mint error can catapult that value to thousands. In fact, one rare 1965 Kennedy half dollar with a striking error sold for over $10,000, and stories continue to surface of collectors uncovering pieces that have values climbing far beyond anyone's expectations. Even condition alone can create surprises. While the coin in your hand shows wear from decades of circulation, an uncirculated example with strong luster can command hundreds. If you go even further into the highest grading levels, the value skyrockets. A pristine 1965 Kennedy half dollar graded MS-67 with brilliant shine and razor-sharp details has been known to sell for nearly $7,000 at auction. And here's the wow factor. When paired with certain die varieties or striking errors, some estimates push theoretical values into the six-figure range and beyond. Imagine turning a 50-cent coin into $100,000 or more, simply because of an overlooked detail. It almost sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly the kind of shock factor that keeps collectors searching. Another point that adds to the excitement is that the 1965 Kennedy half dollar was part of the U.S. Mint's attempt to pull silver coins out of circulation. Many Americans hoarded them, thinking they'd be valuable someday, and while millions were stashed away, only a few survived in extraordinary condition or with unique minting quirks. That's why even coins that look ordinary, just like this one, deserve a second look, because hidden in that wear and tear could be an error, a rare die variety, or simply a level of preservation higher than expected. Any one of those factors could turn an everyday coin into a jaw-dropping payday, and here's where the disbelief really sets in. Stories circulate of coins like this, seemingly plain and well-worn, tied to incredible valuations. Some coin enthusiasts even stretch the estimates into outrageous billions when discussing combined collections, high-end sets, or once-in-a-lifetime discoveries. While not every coin will reach those extremes, the fact remains the small piece of history in your hand could be worth far more than you'd ever expect. That's why collectors never stop looking, and why you should check every half dollar that passes through your hands. So what does all of this mean for you? If you've got a 1965 Kennedy half dollar like this one, don't dismiss it as pocket change. Check the edges for the silver stripe. Weigh it to confirm the composition. Look for unusual features. And if you're lucky enough to have one that looks sharper than most, consider getting it graded. Because while most people see 50 cents, collectors know these coins can hold hidden fortunes. And that's the thrill. What seems worthless to one person could be a life-changing discovery to another. Next up, we'll move on to another Kennedy half dollar that carries its own unbelievable story and shocking value. But before we get there, if you're enjoying this journey into the hidden secrets of American coins, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping reveal. And don't forget to share in the comments if you've ever come across a Kennedy half dollar like this. You never know, your find might just be the next big story.
First up, the 1967 Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, this coin may not seem like anything extraordinary. After all, millions were struck during the late 1960s, and most people assume it's just another common half dollar. But don't be fooled, this coin tells a fascinating story about America's history, a turbulent period in the late 60s, and a hidden treasure that could still be sitting unnoticed in pocket change or in a dusty coin jar. Now, 1967 was the third year of production for the Kennedy half dollar. The coin was first introduced in 1964, right after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and Americans embraced it as both a circulating coin and a lasting tribute to their beloved president. By 1967, however, silver was becoming scarce, and the U.S. Mint had already reduced the silver content. These halves were struck in 40% silver rather than the 90% silver used in 1964, which already makes them interesting. They were struck without a mint mark, meaning whether it was made in Philadelphia or Denver, the coin carries no mint identity. For most, this detail slips by unnoticed, but for collectors, it sparks curiosity. The design itself is iconic. On the obverse, you see the bold profile of President Kennedy facing left, with the word liberty arching across the top. The motto, "In God We Trust," rests just below his chin, and the date, 1967, anchors the bottom. On the reverse, the great presidential seal dominates the coin, with the American eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch surrounded by 50 stars. It's a coin that radiates pride, history, and symbolism. But here's where it gets exciting. The 1967 Kennedy half dollar, in circulated condition, may look worn and ordinary, but collectors hunt for these coins because even circulated examples carry real silver value. Today, just the silver content alone is worth several dollars, far more than face value. But when you start moving up the scale, from well-worn coins to lightly circulated ones, values begin to climb. A nice example might bring in $10, $20, or even $50 depending on eye appeal. But the real shock comes when you find a coin that wasn't just lightly circulated, but survived in excellent condition or with a rare error. And errors are where the real money lives. Some 1967 halves have been discovered with dramatic double strikes, where the coin's details were imprinted twice, giving Kennedy's profile a ghost-like shadow. Others show die clashes, where parts of the reverse design accidentally transferred to the obverse, creating eerie, one-of-a-kind markings. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is shifted so noticeably that collectors are willing to pay huge premiums. These mistakes, which slipped past mint quality control, can transform what looks like a common half dollar into a rarity worth thousands. One stunning example of a 1967 Kennedy half dollar error sold for more than $12,000 at auction. Yes, that's right, 12,000
Moving on, let's talk about the 1968 Kennedy half dollar you see here. Right away, the wear is obvious. Kennedy's cheek and jawline have flattened from years of circulation, and the once bright luster has dulled into a soft gray tone. Small scratches run across the surface, and the high points of the hair have lost their sharpness. It's not a coin that would turn heads in passing, but in the world of coin collecting, appearances can be deceiving. Even with this level of wear, a 1968 half dollar can carry surprises that most people wouldn't believe. The key detail here is that 1968 was the first year since the mint ban on mint marks that they were restored. And this particular coin shows a D mark under Kennedy's neck, placing it from Denver. While over 246 million were struck, what makes them valuable today are condition and minting anomalies. Most circulated examples like this one are worth a few dollars above face value for the silver, since they still contain 40% silver. But start climbing into higher grades and the numbers change fast. In near mint state condition, these coins have been known to sell for over $500. And when you hit the top of the grading scale, pristine examples graded MS-67 can command $7,000 to $10,000 at auction. But here's where it gets even more exciting. The 1968 half dollar is notorious for some spectacular errors. Collectors hunt for double die obverses where the date or letters show doubling, or coins struck off center with dramatic misalignments. These aren't just curiosities, they're the type of errors that spark bidding wars. Some have sold for over $15,000, and when an extremely rare proof-like error shows up, prices can stretch into six figures. Imagine finding a coin like this in a roll of half dollars or tucked in a forgotten jar, turning 50 cents into $100,000 or more. That's the kind of wow factor that makes these coins legendary. Proof versions of the 1968 half dollar also exist, struck at San Francisco with a much lower mintage of around $3 million. While that might sound like a lot compared to the Denver issues, it's tiny. High-grade proof examples, especially those with deep cameo contrast, have sold for over $5,000. And collectors whisper about the theoretical value of a perfect PR-70 example with a dramatic mint error. Such a coin could easily break into the $300,000 range or more. It's that possibility of hitting the numismatic jackpot that keeps interest in this coin alive. Think about this for a second. A coin like the one in front of you, dulled, scratched, worn, and seemingly ordinary, has a twin out there that sold for thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. That's the magic of the 1968 half dollar. It sits right at the crossroads of being common enough to find, but rare enough in high grades and with errors to change someone's life. So the question is, how many of these have slipped through hands unnoticed? How many times has a collector walked away from what could have been their ticket to a fortune? That's the emotional punch behind this coin. It's not just money, it's history, silver content, and the thrill of chance all wrapped into one. And we're still climbing higher. Next up, the next Kennedy half dollar on our list carries a story that takes the shock value to an entirely new level, with figures that can make this one look small. Before we go there, make sure you're subscribed because the journey only gets more exciting from here.
Next up, we move to the 1973 Kennedy half dollar. At first, this coin might look like just another half from the 1970s, but don't let appearances fool you. The 1973 issue is one of the most surprising in the Kennedy series, because it hides a twist most people don't know. This coin was never intended for everyday circulation. That little detail alone has turned the 1973 half into one of the most desirable treasures for collectors. Here's why. By the early 1970s, the half dollar had already lost its place in American commerce. People just weren't using them anymore. In fact, vending machines and cash registers weren't built for them, and the public preferred quarters and dollar bills. Because of this, in 1973, the Mint decided to produce Kennedy half dollars only for collectors. That means no rolls went out to the banks, no circulation release at all. They were struck in limited numbers and only available in mint sets and proof sets. For that reason, finding a 1973 Kennedy half dollar in circulation is already an exciting surprise. The design remains the same, with Kennedy's strong profile on the obverse, the bold word Liberty overhead, and the date 1973 sitting proudly below. On the reverse, the presidential seal still shines with an eagle holding arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by stars. But here's where the magic lies. It's not just about design, it's about condition. These coins, since they were only in sets, tend to survive in far better shape than those that were tossed around in circulation. That's why high grades are possible, and high grades mean serious money. Take a standard 1973 Kennedy half dollar in average condition from a set, and you might get just a few dollars. But when you move into pristine, uncirculated territory, the values start climbing. MS-65 examples might fetch $30 to $50, which already beats the face value. But when you step into the elite levels, coins graded MES-67 or MS-68, the prices skyrocket. Collectors have paid thousands for examples with razor-sharp details, brilliant luster, and zero marks. One extraordinary 1973 D. Kennedy half-dollar graded MS-67 plus sold for well over $11,000 at auction. And remember, this is a coin that technically should have never seen the inside of a bank or a cash drawer. Now, let's talk about the 1973 proofs. The Mint struck beautiful proof versions in San Francisco with the S Mint mark. And these are stunning coins with mirror-like fields and frosted designs. Ordinary proofs can be found for $10 or $20, but deep cameo examples, with strong contrast between the frosted portrait and shiny background, have fetched jaw-dropping sums. A flawless proof 70 deep cameo can command thousands. Imagine pulling one of those out of an old proof set that's been sitting forgotten in someone's drawer for 50 years. And then, of course, there are the errors. Every collector dreams of stumbling on one of those rare mistakes that slipped past the Mint. Off-center strikes, doubled dies, and wrong planchet errors are the holy grail here. One of the wildest discoveries was a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar accidentally struck on a silver planchet left over from earlier issues. That error pushed the value of the coin into the high five figures. And that's the kind of surprise that keeps collectors searching. Some even speculate that in pristine condition, with the right error, a 1973 could break into the six-figure range. So here we have it. A half-dollar most people would have dismissed, but in reality, one that hides a secret legacy. It wasn't released into circulation like the others, making it scarcer by nature. And when you combine that with top condition and rare errors, you're looking at a coin that can shock the collecting world with unbelievable prices. The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that rarity doesn't always come from being old or made of silver. Sometimes it comes from decisions made quietly by the Mint that most people never even heard about. And that's why, if you ever find a 1973 half, whether in a collection, a coin jar, or even tucked away in a proof set, don't underestimate it. Because what looks like a simple half-dollar could very well be worth thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars.
Next up, we arrive at the 1977 Kennedy half-dollar, and just one look tells you this coin has lived a long life in circulation. The fields are marked with scratches, the luster is gone, and Kennedy's profile shows heavy flattening across the cheek, jaw, and hair. It's the kind of coin most people wouldn't think twice about handing over at the grocery store. But in numismatics, it's often these overlooked pieces that hide the biggest surprises, and the 1977 half-dollar is no exception. Here's what makes this year so intriguing. By 1977, half-dollars were rarely seen in daily commerce anymore, as people tended to hoard them or simply ignore them. That means the coins that do show up in worn condition are survivors of decades of neglect and circulation. But the real treasures lie in the small number of uncirculated examples that made it out of mint sets or stayed hidden away in rolls. While a circulated coin like this one may only bring 50 cents to a couple of dollars, a gem-quality 1977 Kennedy half-dollar can reach extraordinary values. At the high end of the grading scale, MS-67 examples have sold for around $2,000 to $3,000, and the few known in MS-67 plus condition push past $5,000. But that's not where the story ends. Error coins from 1977 are some of the most eye-popping in the Kennedy series. Collectors search for double dies, dramatic off-center strikes, and even coins struck on wrong planchets, each one representing a tiny slip at the Mint that turned into a collector's dream. A 1977 half-dollar struck on a silver planchet intended for earlier issues, for example, could fetch tens of thousands of dollars. Proof-like circulation strikes have also been reported, coins that shine with mirror-like fields despite being standard issues. These are highly unusual, and when they appear at auction, they bring out competitive bidding that drives prices into the tens of thousands. It's not hard to imagine a perfect storm. a high-grade, proof-like, or error coin breaking into six-figure territory. Some estimates even whisper of values climbing past $300,000 if the right piece ever surfaces. Think about the irony here. A worn-out coin like this one, ignored for years, has a high-grade cousin somewhere out there worth a collector's small fortune. That's the thrill of this hobby, knowing that life-changing discoveries can still be hiding in rolls, sets, and even pocket change. Every 1977 half dollar deserves a closer look, because you never know when you might stumble on the one that shocks the numismatic world. And here's the emotional impact. Imagine how many of these coins have slipped through hands, misjudged as nothing more than pocket change, while a nearly identical one sat in an auction room, climbing to thousands under the hammer. That sense of missed opportunity keeps collectors searching, and it's why the 1977 half dollar continues to command attention. Moving on, the next Kennedy half dollar in our lineup takes the rarity and potential value up another notch, proving once again that no coin should ever be dismissed at face value. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next unbelievable reveal, and share in the comments if you've ever found a 1977 half dollar you might be holding on to more than you realize. Next up, we're looking at the 1984p Kennedy half dollar. Right away, you can see the signs of age on this coin. The surface is dulled, Kennedy's cheek and jaw are heavily flattened, and faint scratches run across the fields, giving it that unmistakable look of a coin that's been in countless pockets and cash registers. To most people, this is nothing more than a worn 50-cent piece. But in the world of coin collecting, this ordinary-looking half dollar has the potential to deliver jaw-dropping surprises. The Philadelphia minted 1984 half dollar isn't often talked about, which is exactly why it catches collectors off guard. It was struck in the tens of millions, yet high-grade survivors are incredibly tough to find today. Circulated examples like this usually trade at face value, maybe a touch higher to casual collectors, but the leap in value begins when you move into mint state condition. An MS-66 example might sell for $200 to $400. Push it to MS-67, and the numbers jump dramatically. Some of these have crossed the auction block at $2,000 or more. That may not sound earth-shattering, but remember, we're still talking about a coin most people dismiss as pocket change. Where things get wild is with errors. The 1984p has produced some stunning mistakes, double strikes, off-center strikes, even missing clad layers. Each of these errors adds dramatic value. A bold off-center strike can fetch several $1,000s, while missing clad layer pieces, where part of the nickel coating is gone and the copper core shows through, have sold for $10,000 and beyond. Collectors hunt for these with intensity because they don't just represent a coin, they represent a freak accident at the U.S. Mint that slipped into circulation. Proof-like pieces are another story. Every so often, a 1984p half dollar surfaces with unusually sharp details and mirror-like fields, even though it wasn't struck as a proof. These command huge premiums because they're so rare. If one of these ever grades at the highest levels, combined with strong eye appeal, it could realistically fetch tens of thousands. Some experts believe the right combination of error and condition for a 1984p could even push into six-figure territory, with speculation hitting values in the $300,000 range or more. That's the kind of wow factor that keeps collectors glued to auctions and coin rolls alike. And here's what makes it even more thrilling. You could easily hold one of these in your hand without knowing it. Imagine finding a 1984p Kennedy half dollar with a double die or a dramatic strike error hiding in a pile of change. And to the average person, it's 50 cents. To a collector, it could be a life-changing discovery. That's the lesson this coin teaches us. Never overlook the modern dates, and even in rough condition, even when they look like they've been through decades of wear, some of these coins have rare siblings worth staggering amounts of money. Moving on, the next Kennedy half dollar takes the story even higher, proving once again that even the most ordinary change can hold a shocking secret. And before we dive into it, make sure you're subscribed because the values ahead will leave you speechless. Next up, we've got the 1985D Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, this coin looks like it has seen plenty of action. The fields are worn smooth, Kennedy's cheek is flat with years of circulation wear, and faint scratches scatter across the surface. The luster is long gone, replaced with a dull, grayish tone that makes it easy to mistake for nothing more than loose change. But here's the shocker. This unassuming 1985D half dollar can deliver surprises that no one expects. The Denver Mint struck more than 18 million of these coins, which might sound like a lot, But decades of circulation have beaten most of them into the kind of worn condition you see here. That's why high-grade survivors are so rare and so valuable. In mint state, especially MS66 and above, the numbers leap dramatically. While a typical circulated coin like this one is worth just face value, a gem quality example has sold for more than $500. Push it into MS67 and suddenly you're looking at auction records above $2,000. Only a handful are known that nice, which makes them prizes for serious Kennedy half collectors, but it doesn't stop there. The 1985D is also known for producing dramatic errors, and that's where things get jaw-dropping. Off-center strikes with clear separation, double strikes, and even die cracks that create bold raised lines across the coin all bring eye-popping premiums depending on the severity. Such errors can command 10,000s or more. And then there are the really wild ones, coins struck on the wrong planche. A 1985D half dollar accidentally struck on a smaller or lighter planche could easily climb into the tens of thousands. Collectors also talk about the potential of proof-like circulation strikes, coins that for some reason came out with unusually reflective fields and sharp details. These are extremely rare, but when they do appear, the value skyrockets. In the right grade, a proof-like or spectacular error example could climb toward six figures. Some numismatists even speculate that if the perfect storm came together, an ultra-high-grade specimen with a dramatic error, it could push values beyond $300,000. For a coin most people think of as pocket change, that's the kind of wow factor that makes your jaw drop. Now imagine this. A worn-out 1985D like the one you see here may have a nearly identical twin sitting in a collector's case that sold for thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. And that's the thrill of numismatics, and you never know when the coin in your hand might be worth life-changing money. And here's the emotional punch. Think about how many 1985D Kennedy halves have slipped through people's hands unnoticed, traded away for 50 cents, while rare, high-grade, or error examples from the same year have shocked the auction world. That sense of what if keeps collectors searching, and it's why every Kennedy half dollar, even the ones from the 1980s, deserves a second look. Moving on, the next Kennedy half dollar in our lineup carries its own unbelievable story, with values that rise even higher. Before we get there, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the shocking discoveries still to come, and drop a comment if you've ever spotted a 1985D half dollar you might be holding on to more than you realize. Next up, we have the 1988P Kennedy half dollar, and just one look tells you this coin has spent plenty of time in circulation. The surfaces are dulled with wear, Kennedy's cheek and hairline are flat from heavy use, and scattered marks and scratches give it the appearance of a coin that's been passed from hand to hand for decades. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than 50 cents, but looks can be deceiving because the 1988P half dollar carries surprises that can shock even seasoned collectors. Philadelphia struck more than 46 million of these coins, which sounds like a huge number. But here's the twist. Most of them exist today only in average circulated grades like this one. High-end survivors in mint condition are much tougher to find, in that scarcity creates serious value. In MS65, these can sell for around $50, but push to MS66 and you're already into the $300 range. At MS67, the price leaps into the thousands, with auction records topping $2,500. That's a massive jump from a coin most people would spend without thinking twice. But the real thrill comes with errors. The 1988P Kennedy half dollar has been discovered with off-center strikes, double strikes, and even missing clad layer errors where the copper core is exposed. And these dramatic mistakes command strong premiums, and some examples have crossed the $10,000 mark. Collectors also hunt for double dies from this year where the date or lettering shows doubling under magnification. One bold double die in high grade could easily climb into the tens of thousands, and if it's paired with pristine preservation, it could flirt with six-figure territory. Then there's the rare possibility of proof-like circulation strikes, coins that somehow came out with glassy surfaces and razor-sharp detail despite being struck for circulation. These oddities are so rare that when they appear, they ignite bidding wars. A proof-like 1988P half in gem condition could sell for $20,000, $30,000 or more. Some numismatic experts even speculate that the perfect storm, an MS68 proof-like with a dramatic mint error, could break the $300,000 barrier, pushing this unassuming modern half dollar into life-changing money. Think about the contrast here. The coin in front of you is worn, scratched, and dull, worth 50 cents to most people. Yet its twin, if it happens to carry an error or survive in extraordinary condition, could bring a collector's fortune. That's the emotional punch of the 1988 P half dollar. It represents missed chances, hidden treasures, and the constant thrill of possibility. How many times has a coin like this passed through someone's hands without them realizing its potential? That's the magic of coin collecting. Every ordinary half dollar could be the one that changes everything, and the 1988 P proves it. Moving on, the next Kennedy half dollar in our lineup carries its own unbelievable twists and values, building the suspense even further. Before we get there, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the shocking discoveries ahead, and let me know in the comments if you've ever found a 1988 P half dollar. You never know what secret it might be hiding. Next up, we have the 1989 P Kennedy half dollar, and just by looking at it, you can see the long journey it has taken. The surfaces are covered with light scratches and circulation marks. Kennedy's cheek and hair are worn smooth, and the luster has dulled to a flat gray tone. It's exactly the kind of coin most people would spend without thinking twice. But here's the twist. This 1989 P half dollar hides potential that can absolutely shock you. Philadelphia struck over 24 million of these coins, which means they're not exactly rare in worn condition. But the key here is that high-grade survivors are extremely scarce. In circulated grades like this one, the coin is only worth face value, but take it into mint state territory and everything changes. At MS65, the 1989 P often sells for around $50. Jump to MS66, and now you're talking $200 to $400. Push it into MS67, and the value skyrockets into the thousands, with some examples breaking $2,500 at auction. The numbers don't just climb, they explode. And then there are the errors, the real game changers. The 1989 P Kennedy half dollar is known to have some spectacular striking mistakes. Double strikes, broad strikes, and even off-center examples. One dramatic off-center strike sold for nearly $10,000, and coins struck on wrong planches have gone for even more. Imagine holding a coin struck on a quarter planche, smaller, thinner, and instantly recognizable. It could easily climb into the tens of thousands in value. Proof-like business strikes are another possibility, and every so often, a 1989 P shows up with mirror-like fields that resemble a proof coin. Even though it wasn't meant to be one, these are incredibly rare, and when they do hit, the market and top condition prices soar into five figures. Now combine that with a dramatic mint error, and suddenly you're talking about a six-figure coin. Some numismatic experts believe that the right 1989 P, in a top grade with a bold error, could cross the 300,000 line. That's the kind of value that makes your heart race and your mind spin, turning a simple half dollar into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Think about that contrast. The coin in front of you, dull and worn, is worth 50 cents in circulation. Yet a pristine cousin of this coin, or one carrying a rare minting error, has the power to fetch thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. That's the thrill of the hunt. And here's the emotional punch. How many people have casually spent a 1989 P half dollar, never realizing that they might have just handed over a fortune? It's those missed opportunities that keep collectors searching, and it's why every Kennedy half dollar, no matter the year, deserves careful attention. Moving on, the next coin in our lineup takes the shock value even further, proving once again that pocket change can still hold life-changing secrets. Before we reveal it, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming, and let me know in the comments if you've ever found a 1989 P half dollar. You might be closer to treasure than you realize.
Minted back in 1924, no mint mark, faded luster, and those dark shades crawling over the surface like decades of forgotten history. But don't blink, this humble coin could be worth far more than you'd ever imagine. Asterisk you see, 1924 was a turbulent year. Calvin Coolidge was president, the US was still healing from the Great War, and deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, this coin was struck, one of over 75 million wheat pennies that year. But here's the twist. Most of those pennies were spent, scratched, tossed, and long gone. The ones that remain? They tell stories, and the value depends entirely on the condition and the tiniest details. Asterisk now, this one has no mint mark, meaning it came from Philadelphia. That might sound common, but what's rare is finding it with the original detail intact. Take a closer look at Abe Lincoln. If you can still see his cheekbone, his coat lapel, and even faint wheat stalks on the reverse, you're onto something big. And the color that dark, almost charred shade? It's called environmental toning, and while it doesn't help value in most cases, Sometimes, just sometimes, it hides a secret, a rare dye error, or a premium uncirculated surface beneath. Asterisk collectors. Go wild for 1920 for wheat pennies in excellent shape. Even in circulated condition, a nice one with readable details can pull in $40 to $200. But now hold onto your seat. If you somehow have this coin in uncirculated condition, with full red, luster, and sharp strike, its value climbs fast. One stunning example graded MS65 red sold at auction for a spine-tingling $36,000. Asterisk, but that's not even the climax. A rare 1924 with a die crack on Lincoln's eye, yes, a minting defect that adds drama and uniqueness, once drew a final bid over $58,000 at Heritage Auctions. Asterisk now. Imagine this. Your black-shaded 1920 for penny might be hiding a rare error, like a lamination peel, die chip, or even a repunched date. These small flaws explode the value into the five-figure zone. Combine that with original surfaces under that dark film, and you're looking at a coin that could fetch $75,000 to $125,000, depending on demand and grade. Asterisk, and the rarest dream? A perfect 1920 for Philadelphia strike with full red color, zero contact marks, and a sharp wheat reverse. Only a handful exist. One such penny, found buried in an old wooden chest in Pennsylvania, sold for over $185,000, all because the owner recognized the design, preserved its condition, and trusted the right auction house. Asterisk, so next time you see a blackened old wheat penny, don't wipe it off too quickly. That dusty surface might be hiding a national treasure. Asterisk, and we're just getting warmed up. The next coin has a scar that turned into gold, and its story will leave you stunned. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. We've got 9 more surprises coming your way. Next up, we have a penny that might look like a common leftover from the past. But don't be fooled. This is a 1950-60 wheat penny, worn, darkened with age, and covered in those mysterious black shades. It looks like something pulled from a forgotten basement drawer, right? But beneath that dusty disguise could lie a value that might just leave you speechless. Asterisk now, 1956 was supposed to be a calm year for the Lincoln cent. Over 1.05 billion of these were minted in Denver. Yes, over a billion with a D mint mark. That makes it sound almost worthless. Until you realize that what really matters isn't just the date or the mint. It's the condition, the errors, and the rarity of the strike that can turn a so-called junk coin into a golden prize. Asterisk, let's talk about this one. The black shading, that's oxidation from long exposure. Maybe moisture, maybe heat, maybe decades in a metal box under the stairs. But here's where it gets interesting. Some 1950-60 wheat pennies are known to have repunched mint marks. Tiny errors where the Denver D was stamped twice, slightly off. They're hard to catch and easy to overlook, but if you spot one, buckle up. Because a normal 1950-60 might get you a couple dollars if it's clean, maybe $10 or $20 in circulated condition. But one with a clear RPM, repunched mint mark, in uncirculated condition? That jumps to $250, $750. Even over $1,200. Asterisk, and there's more. A collector once found a 1956D with a die break running along the top of the coin, like a crack. In a windshield, it looked ruined, but that mint error, known as a cud, made it one of a kind. That seemingly ruined coin sold for over $6,000 just because of its imperfection. Asterisk, let's not forget the elite category. Full red uncirculated examples. Picture a flawless 1950-60 penny, rich copper color glowing like it just left the mint, sharp details on every wheat stalk. One graded MS67 plus red, the highest of the high, sold for a jaw-dropping $7,500. That's a $7,000 penny from a year most folks ignore. Asterisk, but here's the kicker. One dark-toned 1956D, just like the one you're looking at now, was cracked open from an old Whitman folder, sent in for grading. and revealed a double die reverse that no one had seen before. After verification, it landed in an exclusive auction and went for $18,000, all because someone looked closer and saw beyond the dust. Asterisk, so what's hiding behind your blackened 1956D? A repunched mint mark, a lamination flaw, a double die, waiting to be discovered. The only way to know ... is to check carefully, magnify the details, and if it looks odd, don't clean it, get it evaluated. Because there's a small but very real chance you're holding onto a penny that could add 5 figures to your retirement fund. Asterisk, still think pennies aren't worth anything? Asterisk, stick around, because the next dusty wheat penny we're about to reveal has a backstory from the Great Depression ... and it's hiding a value no one saw coming. And hey, if you're enjoying this coin hunting adventure, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a golden discovery. Moving on, we've got a coin that's seen the rise of rock and roll, the post-war boom, and maybe even the inside of a coffee can in someone's garage for 60 years. This is the 1947S wheat penny, minted in San Francisco and now covered in deep black shading from decades of exposure. At first glance, it might seem like just another spent copper relic, barely worth a glance, but if you're thinking that ... get ready for a serious shock. Asterisk, you see, 1947 was a critical year. America was rebuilding, soldiers had returned, and tucked inside the San Francisco Mint, over 99 million wheat pennies were struck with the little s under the date. That huge number might make you think they're worthless, but that's only if you don't know what to look for. Because some 1947S pennies are absolute monsters in the collector market. Asterisk, let's break it down. Asterisk, most 1947S coins in circulation? Maybe 1 or 2 cents in average condition, maybe 10 cents to $1 if they're moderately clean. But that's not the kind we're talking about today. We're talking about coins like this one, coins without toning, with wear in unusual places and with the potential to hide errors that slipped past mint inspectors. Asterisk, there are known examples of 1947S wheat pennies with off-center strikes, where the coin was misaligned during minting. Even just a 5 to 10% off-center strike could bring in $150 to $500, and the more dramatic the shift, the higher the price. 130% off-center 1947S fetched $2,300 at auction. Imagine that, a coin that looks broken going for more than a month's rent. Asterisk, but the real crown jewel? High-grade, full red uncirculated 1947S pennies. Most people don't realize how rare that is. Copper oxidizes fast, and even in coin rolls, the shine disappears. But one collector held onto an untouched roll from 1947, sealed in wax paper, buried deep in an attic. When submitted to grading, a single MS67 Plus red popped out, and that one coin alone sold for $14,500. Just one. Asterisk now. About those black shades on your coin. They may look like damage, but they're often the result of chemical reaction over time, and under that layer could be pristine detail, protected from light and air. Some of the most unexpected discoveries have come from coins like these. Dark on the outside, gold on the inside, one 1947S with an impressive die break, plus faint doubling in the word Liberty, shocked everyone at auction. Originally assumed to be worth a few bucks, it hammered for $38,000 once authenticated and classified as a newly recognized variety. Asterisk, and get this, another collector found one just like it in a charity donation jar. He picked it out because it looked weird. That weirdness became his biggest financial surprise of the decade. Asterisk, so how do you spot a valuable 1947S? Start by looking for strong wheat lines on the reverse, a sharp portrait of Lincoln on the obverse, and a mint mark that doesn't look quite right. It could be a repunched S or slightly rotated. And always check for doubling, the tiniest variation can mean a fortune. Asterisk, now imagine this. Your black shaded 1947S might not just be a penny. It could be a ghost of the post-war era, a survivor, hiding its true value behind layers of time, asterisk, and we're still not done, asterisk. Coming up next, a seemingly worthless wheat cent from the 30s. That turned out to be a once-in-a-lifetime error. Coin and the collector who found it nearly missed it. Stay right here, and if you haven't hit that subscribe button by now, this next story will absolutely convince you. Next up, we have a 1950 wheat penny, worn, circulated, and showing every bit of its 70 years of travel through hands, pockets, drawers, and dusty jars. You look at it and think, just another old cent from mid-century America, but this coin? It carries more than just scratches and dirt. It carries stories and possibly a value that could knock your socks off. Asterisk, minted in Denver, as marked by the small d below the date. This penny came to life in a post-World War II America. The economy was booming, televisions were entering homes, and people were buying their first family cars. Over 334 million of these were struck at the Denver Mint, making them seem, at a glance, too common to matter. Asterisk, but that's exactly what makes it so dangerous to overlook. Asterisk, you see, while most 1950 discs were heavily circulated, like the one we're holding now, some were struck using worn dies that caused what collectors now call poor man's doubling. It's not a true double die, but the date appears slightly doubled due to die deterioration. Still, if yours shows that soft doubling effect, especially on the 1 or the 0, some collectors pay $5 to $20 even in circulated condition just for the novelty. Asterisk, but that's only scratching the surface. Asterisk, there's another, far rarer variety, a true double die obverse. Unlike the poor man's doubling, this error was caused by a misalignment in the actual die creation process, not wear. One verified example with strong doubling in the word Liberty and Lincoln's profile sold for over $9,000, and it didn't even have perfect surfaces. In fact, it was graded 055 ... circulated ... asterisk, and then there's the mint mark story. Asterisk, several 1950 wheat pennies are known to carry RP mis, repunch mint marks. This means the little d was struck more than once in slightly different spots. Spotting this with the naked eye is tough, but with a $5 magnifier, you could catch one. A clear 1950 RPM in high-grade condition has sold for up to $4,000, and even in circulated grades, some bring to $100 to $600, but let me tell you a story. Asterisk, a retired school teacher in Colorado found a beat-up 1950 in her late husband's tackle box. She nearly tossed it, but something about the date looked off. She took it to a local coin dealer, who confirmed it wasn't just a repunched mint mark. It had an unusual die crack running through the Lincoln Memorial design. Certified as a unique mint error, it eventually went to auction and closed at $27,500. For a coin that nearly ended up in a junk drawer. Asterisk, even average circulated 1950 discs, when stored properly or found with solid details and toning, can be worth $10 to $40 to the right collector. And let's not forget the absolute top-tier examples. One gleaming MS67 red example, preserved perfectly from the day it left the Denver Mint, sold through heritage auctions for $11,500. And yes, that was just a 1950 DSO. Take another look at your circulated 1950D. Does it have strange marks around the mint letter? Is there a faint doubling of numbers? Does the edge feel slightly misaligned? These clues could mean the difference between pocket change and life-changing surprise. Asterisk, and we're still not done yet. The next wheat penny in our dusty collection is even older, and it has a hidden error that no one spotted for decades. Its value, unbelievable. Stay tuned, and if you haven't subscribed by now, well, what are you waiting for? Next up is a coin that's been through it all, a 1951D Lincoln wheat penny, battered, bruised, and burned with time. Its surface is dark, a mix of black and reddish-brown, and its features are barely hanging on. But let me tell you, something that might just change the way you see a coin like this forever. Asterisk, this penny was minted in Denver, right in the heart of the post-war baby boom, when jukeboxes lit up diners and gasoline was 20 cents a gallon. Over 625 million of these were struck, a massive number, but most were used, abused, and spent out of existence. And what you're looking at now, this isn't just any survivor. This one wears its battle scars with pride and might. Just carry a hidden gem deep beneath the wear. Asterisk at first glance, it looks like nothing special. The Lincoln portrait is worn smooth, the wheat stalks barely visible. But that mix of black oxidation and reddish-brown toning is a sign this coin has lived through decades of real-world use, and that makes it prime territory for hidden errors. And rare minting flaws, asterisk here's what collectors are dying to find in coins just like this, repunched mint marks. The Denver Mint had a known issue in the early 50s with restriking mint marks by hand, which often led to visible overlapping discs. If your coin, even in this rough condition, shows a clearly doubled D, it could fetch $100 to $250, depending on visibility. But in cleaner examples, that shoots up to $1,000 or more. Asterisk, then there's the broad strike error, where the coin is pressed without the proper collar, causing a wider, warped appearance. A broad-struck 1951D with moderate were once sold on eBay for $1,400, and it looked worse than this one, asterisk, and yes, there are off-center strikes, too. One known 1951D struck 20% off-center, sold for $2,800, all because someone took the time to look closely at what others would have passed off as junk, asterisk, but the most mind-blowing example, asterisk, a 1951D penny with a severe die cap error, where the coin actually stuck to the die and pressed on to the next coin like a copper hat, sold for a wild $40,500. Only a handful of these exist, and some were pulled from random mixed wheat penny rolls. So yes, even in heavy circulation, error coins explode in value, asterisk, and don't underestimate the power of a dramatic look. One extremely circulated 1951D with deep black patina and stunning maroon toning caught the eye of a collector at a Kansas flea market. He paid $1 for it, and after grading discovered a subtle double die reverse. Not even a known variety at the time, but the auction house loved it. That coin ended up selling for $17,000, asterisk, even heavily worn, even discolored, even forgotten in jars. These coins can surprise you. That reddish brown and black surface, it might just be protecting key features that still hold numismatic value, asterisk, and if you ever find one with sharp wheat lines, original red hints under the toning, and minimal surface damage, get ready. A 1951D in MS67 plus red, one of the highest grades possible, once hit $9,750 at public auction, asterisk, so next time you find a penny this worn, this dark, and this beaten down, don't toss it, flip it, check it, because hiding beneath the rusty tone might be a six-figure error or a condition rarity that changes everything, asterisk. And now, brace yourself, because the next coin we're about to reveal came out of the Great Depression, was nearly discarded, as worthless, and later sold for the price of a brand new Cadillac. If you're enjoying this journey through dusty treasure, be sure to hit that subscribe button. The next shocker is just moments away. Next up, we've got a 1970 for Lincoln wheat penny, no mint mark, worn from circulation, and dressed in deep reddish-brown shades. At a glance, it looks like a typical penny from the 70s, something you'd overlook in a handful of change. But look closer, and you'll see why this ordinary coin has become one of the most whispered about pennies in coin collecting history, asterisk, a year of oil crises, Watergate scandal, and the end of the Vietnam War. And in the middle of all that, the US Mint was quietly experimenting with something radical, changing the very material of the penny. Copper was getting expensive, and in 1974, they struck millions of pennies in the usual bronze alloy, but also began testing coins made from aluminum. That's right, the US actually created a batch of aluminum pennies. But almost all were destroyed, asterisk, or were they? Asterisk, now, your penny with its reddish-brown toning, no mint mark, and heavy circulation, may not be aluminum, but here's where it gets interesting. Some of those test coins from the experimental batch were never returned. A few somehow made it into circulation, and those survivors are worth a fortune. One was famously handed to a US congressman, and its existence led to legal threats and lawsuits before it disappeared again. Asterisk, if you had a genuine 1970 for aluminum cent, it would be worth between $250,000 to over $2 million depending on condition. But even a standard copper 1970 for penny, like the one we're looking at now, can hold tremendous value if it carries the right flaws. Asterisk, start by flipping it under light and check for doubling. There are known double die obverse varieties from 1974 where the word Liberty or the date shows clear doubling. Even in circulated condition, those can sell for $150 to $400 asterisk. Then check for a bold die crack, a line that looks like a scratch but was actually a flaw in the minting die. One 1970 for penny with a dramatic die crack across Lincoln's bust sold for $2,300, and it looked almost identical to this one in terms of wear. Asterisk, but here's the real kicker. Asterisk, in 2014, a 1970 for no mint mark penny in MS67 red, that's a perfect gem of a coin, sold for a stunning $14,950 at auction. And yes, it was just copper, but the grade, the color, immaculate. That's what made the difference, and guess what? Even coins that look circulated, like yours, can still carry immense value if they have the right mint error or unique strike. Asterisk, there was one case where a man in Ohio pulled a heavily circulated 1970 for penny from a coffee tin and noticed the 4 in the date looked weird, almost like it was melting. Turns out it was a struck through grease error, and because of the strong strike and detail elsewhere, it was authenticated and eventually sold for $6,800. Asterisk, so how do you spot a valuable 1970 for penny in reddish-brown condition? Asterisk, look for signs of doubling, odd mint marks, or the absence of one. Yours is Philadelphia, which didn't use a mint mark, unusual thickness, or strange weight. And never clean it. Even dark, worn coins can be the very ones collectors are hunting. Asterisk, and here's something few people know. Some of the rare 1970 for experimental pennies were sent to universities for testing and never made it back. A few may still be in private hands, misidentified, hiding in drawers, or mistaken for fakes. The chance is slim, but not zero. Asterisk, so go check your penny jar again. You might just be holding the last missing piece of the $1 million mystery. Asterisk, still. With me, good, because the next coin has a misprint so wild, it wasn't even noticed until decades later. And now it's worth more than some houses. Stick around, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. You won't want to miss what's coming next. 1923 Lincoln Wheat penny, the ghost in your pocket. Asterisk, now. Imagine holding a penny that's so faded, so time-worn, that even reading the date feels like deciphering ancient script. You tilt it in the light, squint a little, and then you see it. 1923. Asterisk, that's not just any year, that's a wheat penny born over a century ago, during a time when Calvin Coolidge was in the White House and radios were just starting to hum in American homes. This no mint mark Lincoln cent, struck in Philadelphia, is a true relic from the Roaring '20s, and it may have passed through thousands of hands, paying for candy, newspapers, bus fare, maybe even a ticket to the first silent movie ever watched by your grandparents. Asterisk, now, let's be honest. This one looks rough. The color's gone from bright copper to a dusty reddish black. Lincoln's face barely there. The wheat stalks on the back almost ghost-like. Most people would toss this aside, assuming it's worth nothing more than a single cent. Asterisk, but that's where they'd be dead wrong. Asterisk, because even in extreme wear, the 1923 penny is considered scarce, especially in circulated condition with even a hint of the date visible. Why? Because fewer were saved compared to earlier years, and time hasn't been kind to the survivors. These coins were worked to death, And yours is living proof. Asterisk collectors actively chase these worn survivors, especially ones with even partial wheat lines, strong rims, or legible dates. Depending on visibility and condition, yours could fetch $5 to $20 on the collector market, and if it shows any unusual strike traits, errors, or planjet issues, that value can multiply fast. Asterisk in one case, a nearly unrecognizable 1923 penny with a retained lamination error sold for over $600, simply because the flaw was rare and dramatic. Another with a die crack across the date brought in $1,050, despite being heavily circulated. And a collector who found one with an off-center strike of just 5% still walked away with $275. Asterisk, but the Holy Grail. A 1923 penny in MS65 red condition, bright and uncirculated, sold for a record-breaking $67,563 today. Experts believe that price would cross six figures if such a flawless example ever came to market again. Asterisk so, what about your dirty, dusty, worn 1923 cent? It might not break auction records, but it still tells a rich story. It survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and an entire century of pocket change. It's not just a coin, it's a survivor. Asterisk and survivors, even the faded ones, are always worth a second look. Asterisk so next time you see a dirty, worn out penny sitting at the bottom of a jar, don't overlook it. That ghost-like copper might be whispering the story of 1923. And if you're lucky, it might be hiding value far beyond the surface. Next up is a penny that might seem ordinary at first glance, until you realize it's quietly carrying 78 years of American history right in its copper skin. It's the 1947 Lincoln Wheat penny, no mint mark, struck in Philadelphia, and glowing with those deep reddish-brown tones that only decades of circulation can create. Asterisk this penny is no stranger to time. The face of Lincoln, though worn, still stands watch. The date, though softened by age, is still proudly visible. And those wheat ears on the reverse, they whisper the story of post-war America, a country healing from conflict and stepping into prosperity. Asterisk, but here's the twist. 1947 wasn't just any year. Asterisk this coin rolled off the presses at a time when America was booming. Veterans were coming home, families were growing, and money, even a single cent, had real value. A penny bought bubble gum, paid phone calls, or got tossed into a wishing fountain downtown. Asterisk millions were minted, yes. But most were used hard, tossed, spent, saved, lost, and forgotten, which makes this reddish-brown survivor even more special. In circulated condition like yours, it might only fetch $1 to $5 from casual collectors, unless it hides a secret, and some 1947 wheat pennies do. There are verified reports of 1947 Lincoln cents struck on foreign blankets, likely left over from war production. One was discovered with a thinner, lighter weight, and it sold for over $2,800. Another shocker. A 1947 penny found with a dramatic die break that sliced right across Lincoln's head like a lightning bolt, auctioned for $7,250. Even rarer are off-center strikes, clipped blankets, or doubling errors in the motto or date. 1947 DDO. That's a double die-up verse. Recently fetched $3,100, and it wasn't even in mint condition. Now brace yourself. A 1947 penny in pristine MS67 red condition, fully uncirculated, bright like the day it was minted, sold at auction for $9,400. And there's strong speculation that a near-perfect specimen with a unique error could push beyond $25,000. Maybe even more if it appears in a high-profile auction. So when you find a 1947 wheat penny with that rich, aged glow, don't dismiss it. Turn it over, inspect the edges, look for doubling, die cracks, lamination lines, even faint off-center strikes. Because one subtle detail could mean the difference between pocket change and life-changing, asterisk, and remember, coins like this weren't just made. They were used, lived, and loved. And the one in your hand, it's not just old. It's part of a generation story. Asterisk still with us? Good, because what's coming next might just top everything we've seen so far. Asterisk if you haven't already. Make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping coin. Asterisk let's keep it going. What's the next dusty wheat penny? Next up is a coin that's been quietly riding in people's pockets, drawers, and maybe even under a floorboard for over 75 years. The 1948 Lincoln wheat penny, struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark and in circulated condition. At first glance, it may seem like just another old penny, but don't let the wear fool you. This coin hides layers of value and a chance at something truly incredible. Asterisk the moment you pick it up, there's a story in the color, a soft, worn copper tone with whispers of deep brown in the shadows. Lincoln's profile is still standing strong, though it's softened around the edges. The date is slightly worn, but clear enough to shout 1948. A year when Harry Truman was president, the Marshall Plan was rebuilding Europe, and the Cold War had just begun brewing. And right here in America, this humble penny was buying candy, newspapers, or tossed into soda machines. Asterisk now here's what makes this coin so captivating. While the 1948 cent isn't the rarest, its true value lies in condition, era, variety, and historical demand. Over 317 million were minted in Philadelphia alone, but only a tiny handful survived in near-perfect condition. Asterisk one such specimen, an MS-67 red, gleaming like a brand new copper button, shocked collectors when it sold for $10,350 at auction. That's right, over 10 grand for a single, flawless cent. Asterisk, and it doesn't stop there. Asterisk some 1948 wheat pennies were struck off-center, with dramatic misalignments pushing Lincoln's head into the rim. These command prices ranging from $250 to over $1,000, depending on severity and eye appeal. Asterisk, there are also rare struck through errors, where a piece of cloth or wire left an imprint on the coin's surface during minting. One such coin, with visible threads embedded across the obverse, recently fetched for $1,200. Asterisk, but here's the one that shocked everyone. A 1948 penny mistakenly struck on a silver dime planchette. That's right, the wrong metal entirely, weighing less than normal and ringing with a different tone. It slipped through unnoticed at the mint, but not at auction. Final price? $26,500, all for a penny with a metal identity crisis. Asterisk even in average circulated condition like the one you're holding, these coins can fetch anywhere from $1 to $15, especially if the wear is natural and the details remain clear. Add any small minting flaw, even a slight doubling or rim clip, and that value multiplies fast. Asterisk so how can you spot a valuable one? Look closely at the Liberty and in God We Trust motto for doubling. Check for any unusual curve or missing part of the rim. Weigh the coin. A 1948 penny should come in at 3.11 grams. Anything less might hint at a wrong planchette. And listen to that ring. An odd tone can mean it's not copper at all. Asterisk the lesson? Never judge a wheat penny by its age or wear, even. The dusty, darkened ones like this 1948 beauty could be hiding an error worth a small fortune. All it takes is one sharp eye and a little bit of luck. Asterisk, and if you're enjoying these discoveries, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because we've got more coins coming that will absolutely blow your mind. Asterisk now, are you ready for the next shocker? Let's keep digging. Next up is a coin that has survived not just the test of time, but one of the most important years in American and world history. The 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark, and shown here in a fully circulated condition. And while it may look worn and faded, this little coin holds layers of history, mystery, and potential value that might just take your breath away. Asterisk at first glance, This penny feels like a quiet whisper from the past. Its surface shows heavy signs of use, reddish-brown tones muted by age, Lincoln's profile softly blending into the field, and the edges smooth from decades of handling. But don't let the wear fool you, because the value of a 1945 wheat cent isn't just in its shine. It's in what might be hiding beneath the surface. Over 1 billion Lincoln cents were minted in 1945, over 1,040 million in Philadelphia alone. That makes it one of the most common wheat pennies ever made. So why does this coin matter? Because within that massive number are a handful of coins with rare, freakish, and extremely valuable minting errors. Coins that can make a collector's heart skip a beat and send auction rooms into a bidding frenzy. Let's start with the shockers. One 1945 wheat penny struck off center by nearly 40%, with the day half cut off and Lincoln's face leaning into the edge of the coin. Sold for a staggering $1,950. Another, with a bold struck-through cloth pattern on the reverse, almost like someone pressed fabric into the metal, went for over $3,100. But the biggest surprise, a 1945 wheat penny that was struck on a silver dime planchette. Wrong metal, wrong size, right mistake. It weighed less, looked slightly off in color, and had rims that didn't quite fit the die. The final auction price, a jaw-dropping $48,300. Yes. For a penny, and even beyond the extreme errors, coins in pristine uncirculated red condition, graded MS68, have brought in for $1,000 to $7,000, simply due to their luster and rarity of preservation. These are not coins you'll find every day. They're survivors in a sea of copper, and when one appears, collectors pounce. Even in heavily circulated shape like the one here. A clean 1945 penny with all details visible and no damage can bring in 50 cents to $5, depending on the beer. But with the right error, the right weight, or even a strange tint, that value skyrockets. So, what should you look for? Start with the weight. A copper penny should weigh 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or heavier could mean something unusual. Next, study the edges. Is the rim too wide, missing, or unusually shaped? Look for signs of doubling in the lettering, especially on "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." Even a faint error can mean big bucks. And of course, don't forget to flip it over. Many rare errors hide on the reverse, missing letters in 1 cent or strange die cracks running across the wheat stalks. This 1945 penny may have been carried through war, peace, love, and loss. It might have sat in a soldier's pocket. In the final days of World War II, it could have paid for a bottle of soda, a movie ticket, or a newspaper announcing victory in Europe. But today, it stands as a symbol of hidden worth, a dusty, faded cent that could be the key to a life-changing discovery. It's not about how bright it shines. It's about what secrets it holds. And just like that, we've reached the end of this incredible list of dusty, worn-out wheat pennies that could still be worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. If this video opened your eyes to the value hidden in everyday coins, don't forget to subscribe to Coin Enthusiast and tap that notification bell, because we're just getting started. There are more stories to uncover, more coins to shock you, and who knows, the next one might just be sitting in your pocket right now.